There are moments in time that change your life. And the moment that changed my life to the positive, that I can track everything back to over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, is the moment that I met Kim Serafini. So I'm delighted. Kim Serafini is the creator of the Positive Prime software that you'll hear a lot about, my story about anyway, as we talk about it. And she's the impetus, the founder of a movement to bring more positivity into the world and more prosperity onto the planet that I am very much interested in learning more about. So as I learn more about it, you're going to learn more about it. So help me welcome Kim Serafini. Kim, I am excited. How are you?
I'm so very well, thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. It's such an honor, privilege, and pleasure to be here. I hope that you're feeling fabulous, and if not, that we just slowly but surely move along the continuum so that you feel at least a little bit better in the space of the next couple of minutes.
Ooh, couple of minutes. Yeah, well, I know how this works in your world. So, Kim, for people who do not already know your story, they don't know about the platform that you've created or anything that you've been up to. Okay, let's take the Wayback Machine and introduce yourself with your story of what was happening that you needed to get your brain on positive?
Oh, that's a fascinating question, Jackie. If I'm honest and I dive really deep into the reflection, I think I was always a relatively anxious or stressed child. I would say, way back to when I was little, I think I was biting my fingernails. I'm pretty sure I was wetting the bed. And there would have been 101 reasons why. I today don't really excavate so much because I now know you don't band-aid, you simply control F and replace. I first had this insight way back. It has to be nearly 20 years ago, but it wasn't really a divine inspiration necessarily. It was probably a culmination and a synthesization of lots of different concepts I had come across over the previous, let's just say, decade. I was first introduced to Anthony Robbins' cassette programs 30 plus years ago.
Don't we love Tony Robbins cassettes? I'm sure there are a bunch of listeners who also have had a few float through their life.
And you can hear I've got an Australian accent. So yes, I'm an Aussie and I live down under, but I did actually live and work in both the United Kingdom and the United States of America early on in my corporate career. So I went to business school, I graduated, I had very ambitious dreams, I was driven, I was particularly enamored with the kinds of movies that would have been anything that made it look like Manhattan was where it was at, or Hong Kong even. So 30 years ago, what actually happened was I was working for a public relations firm, and they seconded me to one of their clients for an employee communications program. And it happened to be an industrial manufacturing site. Back then it was called TRW, and they actually did steering and suspension systems. It was an American company, and they had sent an American C-suiter over to Australia, no doubt because back in those days, maybe it was that Australia wasn't as progressive or innovative or ahead of the game and lagged behind management theory in the United States of America. That's not the case these days, but it certainly was then. And he introduced me to those cassette programs. I believe it's because he actually saw that I wanted to be successful. I'll tell you something really interesting, and this is not a slight on Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins, but what happened in the process of me going to the Date with Destiny program, the Unleash the Power Within weekends, the Life Mastery University program, and then many others over the space of the next 10 years, was I ended up feeling worse about myself, not better, because I couldn't actually live up to my own expectations of these very grand ideals that I had of myself. And I felt like I lacked the discipline and the willpower. It was like Anthony Robbins had set this bar or this standard of excellence that was really high, and I just couldn't match it. What was even more interesting was that I would make these declarations or commitments to myself in those motivational seminars, and oh yes, I was going to change my life. And then I basically didn't follow through, or I didn't follow up, and I fell flat.
That's like the normal experience, because we get back into our normal environment, and our normal environment is full of crabs. They're full of the people who, with all love and dedication to us, want to pull us back into the safety zone, because it's scary out there for them, because they haven't been to the seminars and they haven't learned these things. And because that was our norm, it's easy to fall back into the old pattern.
So the reality is that I am actually the kind of person who probably had a lot of the goodness from the Anthony Robbins events and that content actually seep into my cells. And so I was bathing in this goodness. What happened, I believe, is that I actually had to figure out a way to apply what it is that I knew. And that is actually what Positive Prime is. And I have spent now at least the last decade, coaching, guiding, mentoring people, a lot of people, to break through their own limitations and their own barriers and their own feelings of worthlessness or undeservedness, and there's 1,000 other labels we can apply to those types of feelings. But I needed something, and I imagined that lots of other people did as well, that didn't have you dwell and incubate in the navel gazing of what's wrong with you and why. No. We needed a shortcut to rapid transformation. Since then, I've, met up with people like Marissa Peer, my beautiful friend, who actually has a brand called Rapid Transformation Therapy. Jackie Simmons as well. Lion Goodman as well. I've become friends with people like Jack Canfield. I was about applying what I was learning out of Jack's book, The Success Principles, for real, with real people, with real lives who have real opportunities in front of them, and also real challenges, real life. And so for me, the yardstick now is, does it actually work for normal, average people who want to actually enjoy the existence of living, right? Without thinking they have to get a Nobel Peace Prize, or without thinking they have to do something ridiculously majestic in order to be worthy and deserving of feeling at peace. Like they actually mean something. I mean something. And I want for everybody else, including you, to know that you mean more than you can imagine to others. There's a lot of work around our legacy and what we're doing around leaving the world a brighter and better place. You being the most beautiful, kind, compassionate, gentle version of yourself is that. Because who you will be like that is actually the memory that people will have. It's the ripple effect you will have created. And that will bring about peace on the planet. Forgiveness.
That's a lovely sentiment. The idea that a gentle, kind, generous version of yourself will actually leave a lasting imprint on other people. It's a concept that we don't often hear about, other than in the generic. Maya Angelou said, people will forget your name, but they will always remember how you made them feel. This is about making that intentional feeling of gentle, kind, and generous. Love that.
Do you know, I actually would love for all of you to ask yourself, when you ring somebody and they see your name or phone number come up on the ID on their iPhone, for example, do they actually think, oh, yes, and answer with glee because they're so cheerful they get to talk to you? Or do they think, oh, far out, no, I don't want to actually speak to this person because they complain, because they bring me down, because they criticize, because they're a pain in the neck, because they're always grumbling? I tell you, you actually do know who you are, right?
Oh, there's one in every room, and I'm sure that they know who they are. You know, and we all, I think, have tendencies to fall into that at some point in our lives.
And there's the point, Jackie. So all of us have a shadow. We all have an angry side to us. We all have a, less than admirable, less than respectful side of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so I believe that the intervention that I created, it literally shifts you from, I can't use that word, can I? Shifts you from less than to more than in the space of 3 minutes, and that's been scientifically proven. It actually literally changes your brain dynamics, and it drops you into a synchronization of what they call alpha and theta frequencies or waves. That actually allows your brain to be in a state of flow. When you are in a state of flow, your thinking and feeling can actually reach for a better place, right? And so that gives you the opportunity to actually have a little bit of a reset. And sometimes it's that moment, it's like milliseconds where you can pause and think about how you will respond rather than react to something. You can't do that if your brain, as Jackie Simmons says, or our friend Sean Akel says, isn't on positive. And so here's the crazy thing. Not all of us wake up on the best side of the bed and put our feet down on the floor and think, whoa, yes, I get another day. No, some of us think, oh, good Lord,
that's why
to actually crunch through another day, right?
That's why the snooze button was invented, right?
Yeah, that's a dangerous one. We shouldn't go there. So, you hear all of these great gurus, and they say, oh, you want to bounce out of bed and you want to feel like you can jump for joy and race out into your day. And you know what? I used to feel bad about myself because that wasn't me for the majority of time. And then I was frustrated with me, and then I was angry with me, and none of that serves me or you, right? So Positive Prime is really a very sophisticated neuroscience-based, because of course I have spent the last 10 years really studying what it is that we talk about in terms of mind science, like our mind and our thinking, and how our thinking actually creates feelings, because our thinking actually sends communication messages via our nerves to our guts, how we actually create a chemical cocktail inside our bodies that is an emotion or a feeling based upon our thinking. So that's really mind science. And then how is that unique or differentiated from pure brain science? And is it really that the brain receives the message from your heart and your guts and vice versa? Or is it your mind? Or is it actually a beautiful symphony, a dance between it all? And they actually can't be pulled apart. They're one and the same.
Oh,
and
you mean this?
I've come to the conclusion that it's a wholesome, it's an integrated, it's not an either or, it's definitely an and.
That's a lovely way of putting it. The idea that we cannot be pulled apart into our parts, not when we're talking about physically, that you can't be, what is the old phrase? You can't be just a little bit pregnant. I mean, something that impacts one part of the body impacts the whole body. And the understanding that it's not just something that's physical, it also involves the mind. It also involves the emotions. We're not pieces. We are a whole. And that's a lovely way to look at it.
Okay, so Jackie, you and I dare say, for those of you who are listening, you're probably pretty similar to us, because otherwise you wouldn't be drawn to this conversation. You will have dived or delved into quantum physics as well. And so what we now know is that there is a field in psychology, certainly, and in brain science around epigenetics. It's the way the environment actually impacts the expression of our genes, and how most of us have certain genes, but some of us have those genes turned off, and some of them never get turned on, and some of us have genes that get turned on. And so I now understand that when we are positive, or in particular, if I take personal responsibility for my positivity, right? My optimism, my effervescence, my enthusiasm, my peacefulness. What happens is that I am of a vibration that does create the ripple effect, that does impact people around me. And one of my great friends, Dr. Paul Shealy, says, for 11 miles, who I'm being impacts everybody else in that environment.
Wow.
That is just a head spin, isn't it? It's like, whoa,
that
whoa, I
flies
don't want
in
that
the,
much responsibility.
well, that flies in the face of commonly held beliefs about resonance and how we can build resonance within only a certain area, geographic area. The idea that resonance occurs in an 11-mile radius, that's 22 miles across for those of you who, like me, had geometry challenges. So 22 miles across, that is a lot of influence.
Side to side, diagonally.
I mean, it's like, okay, I don't know how many people live in that. I live in Sarasota, Florida, so there's a lot of people in that space around me. And the idea that I am impacting them, the difference between I am impacting them and I feel responsible for them is the whole realm of training that we do on other people's stories and how not to let them impact you. So we won't tackle that elephant and try to tame it today. But let's go there and go, wait a minute, what if you intentionally impact that sphere of influence positively? That you're intentional about having a positive impact. What have you seen change since you started getting an understanding of the sphere, the literal sphere of influence that you have, that each of us has?
I think that there's just a little bit more thoughtfulness, a little bit more consideration. There's a little bit more tempering. I am accountable for the kinds of actions that allow me to balance myself out and center myself. That could be as simple as drinking a pure glass of filtered water. My hydration matters to my brain. It could also be as simple as walking outside and on a beautiful, bright, sunny day, putting my face to the blue sky and feeling the warmth of the day and allowing that in. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be very tiny, simple little things. All of those little tiny, simple little things add up. There is a compound interest impact to every tiny little thing that we do. It's as simple as I have actually learned to say to my other half, may I please have a hug? Now we know that a certain number of seconds actually increases the potential for the amount of oxytocin that's created in my body. And so I don't want to, insincere hug with a tap on the back. My other half now knows that when I ask that, what I'm really asking for is for my nervous system to be calmed down. And that happens much more regularly in our home than, say, even 10 years ago. But interestingly enough, I never did that when I was in my 20s or 30s. Ever. It didn't even occur to me. I didn't know, right?
We didn't know the science of hugging back then.
Well, and even when I did, Jackie, I'm sure for everybody who's listening, you know something, but you don't apply it. It's all of us, right? And so I'm really now about, let's not intellectualize these concepts. I'm the classic example of somebody who did. Oh, I knew about the science of gratitude. Oh, I could say that I wrote in my gratitude journal. But whether I felt a profound, intense appreciation as an emotion that I allowed to flood my biochemistry, now that was a different thing. And so people used to say to me, and I'm a, really smart, cerebral kind of human being, oh, Kim, you need to drop out of your head and into your heart. And I would look at them like dazed and confused, like, what the heck are you talking about? I almost found it offensive. And yet now, many years down the track, along this little journey, I know exactly what they mean. And now I can also identify it from a mile away, somebody who's in their head and not actually like in their heart. They're just not anchored in their body, and they're therefore not even able to anchor into Mother Earth either. And so all of this, you hear, go out and spend time in nature. Well, that does you no good if you spend your whole time completely obsessed with what's worrying you out there in the future, and you're not even present to being literally solid in your body, in the experience of your physicality, and feeling what it is that you feel under the soles of your feet, right?
You're right. It's absolutely true that most of my life, I lived sort of from the neck up. And even though I'm a stress management consultant and have been for decades, during most of that career, I absolutely confused the energy workers, the acupuncturists, even the massage therapists who worked with me, because they would ask me questions about my body and is this enough pressure or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. You're the expert. And they couldn't figure out why somebody who did what I did for a living could be so disconnected. And now I get it. It's if you don't have the experience of it, you don't know that you're missing the experience of it. So I thought I was connected, but it was just a thought.
Hey, Jackie, connection is such an interesting concept, even about this 11 miles across the sphere. So when we are into ourselves, the navel gazing, the I'm going to pursue all these spiritual practices, and actually really it's a spiritual bypass and not a spiritual expansion. We won't go there today either. The funny thing is that most people actually don't even have an awareness how disconnected they are to the quantum field, right? Or indeed the universe, or to the divine energy that's around them. There are so many people who, and certainly Western society is more like this, and definitely the 80s and 90s and what society held as sacred cows didn't help any of us to understand that we are not islands. You and I are actually connected. For some people, it's too far along the spectrum to actually go, oh, we are all one. Some of us who are really into consciousness work have had glimpses, if not entire embodied experiences of we are all one. But that's actually not usually an experience of beingness that most people carry around with them 24/7. It's like they dip in and dip out, or they fall in, or they fall out of that resonance. But you are connected to each other, but you're actually also connected like the butterfly wings, you know, or like sometimes what will happen is I'll see a news story. There was actually a volcano that exploded, an earthquake in New Zealand, and it created a tsunami wave that was felt in Alaska and also in Australia. And when I see those kinds of stories, it's like I now have that, oh, that's a reminder that what happens a long way away, even though I think it doesn't actually impact my life, does indeed.
And it does, whether it's a long way away physically or whether it's a long way away on a timeline. The reality is it's still in the quantum field. At least that's been my experience once I started becoming a little more conscious of the fact that there was a quantum field. So everyone is invited to come on this journey with you a little faster. And I want to talk about the influence that you are now having, not just in the positive psychology space, but in the social good realm. Because for everybody, anybody listening to this, at some point, they've come across the fact in my bio or in a conversation that I'm part of the Teen Suicide Prevention Society and that whole movement. And as the director of a nonprofit, I'm very much aware that anyone who's looking to support doing good in the world is raising the positivity of every brain they come in contact with, which is, of course, the whole point of this show. So what are you doing now that is raising the positivity of the world?
Look, Jackie, it's such a huge question with such a varied answer, and it could take me a day or a month or a year to answer it. Look, it starts with having a greater number of people positively prime themselves. So we've actually just finished some research at the University of Technology, Sydney, which is the equivalent of, say, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT in the United States, if you want a comparison. And that has actually proven that viewing a positive prime session actually has a causal impact, changing your brain, right? So there are other things that change your brain rapidly, like eating sugar, right? That's actually been scientifically proven to also change your brain. The reality is that that's not very healthy. That's actually
it does rapidly change your brain, and it can certainly feel good if you want to shift your mood quickly. But you're right, it's not very healthy.
There's a toxicity and there's a inflammation outcome. So the consequences and implication of that is not great. So watching a positive prime session actually changes you more rapidly inside 3 minutes. That's been scientifically proven. And the consequences and implications of that are actually really very healthy for you, because the way that your brain operates when it's in flow means that you actually have much better systemic changes inside your body. It's good for your heart. It's good for your digestion. It's good for the people around you. We do know for a fact that the more positive you are, as Sean Acor's research indicates, the more productive you are, the more creative you are, the better quality decisions you can make. They actually had, near you, Jackie, in Florida, they had a whole heap of doctors at Kaiser Permanente Hospital positively primed, and they gave them case studies, and they came to accurate diagnoses faster. They then took a set of people and put them through negative priming, and they did not come to an accurate diagnosis. Right?
It's really amazing to understand.
That is actually probably scary.
That's really scary. So a doctor coming up to work in a bad mood could be a problem waiting to happen.
Oraz Now, I'm going to say exactly the same thing, because Sean also did some research with the Ritz-Carlton hotels and so forth. So people who are positively primed don't necessarily know the impact they're having on guests, but guests who came in contact with people who were positive primed, they weren't told, by the way, actually scored the hotel higher on all of the customer satisfaction questions. And so the implications are far-reaching, they're wide. It's amazing what happens when your brain is on positive. So I would invite those of you who are listening, do yourself a favor, literally sign up to become a subscriber of Positive Prime. It's one of the best ways that you can spend your precious money. And I know that all of us have money that's very precious, so we really respect that. But this is actually really good for you. And interestingly enough, I wanted to make it a completely easy decision by having a sharing model. So you can invite 4 other people, friends, family, or clients to actually join in on your subscription. So it's effectively like one subscription is offered to 5 people. So that's 1/5 of the cost per person. I do believe that that's phenomenal. I believe that's very generous, but it is actually my intention. And why? Because we need the world to be positively primed.
Oh, yeah.
We cannot tackle the world's problems unless we are all positively primed. We can't come to elegant solutions. We can't apply them. We can't get the impetus, the momentum that's necessary to actually bring about the kinds of huge changes we need to society, to worlds that we live in, to industries, to countries. I mean, seriously, the world needs to be positively primed. And so, that really is the simplest, easiest thing for you to do. It is enjoyable, and it only takes 3 minutes a day, and you can do it several times a day if you like. Interestingly enough, we are going through our own transformation inside Positive Prime. And so depending upon when you're listening to this, you will join and may even find that you're given a whole heap of rewards. If you've already joined, you'll actually be given more rewards sooner rather than later. So you're lucky if you've already joined, or if you're just about to join, you can consider yourself extremely lucky, because you will be considered a very early bird and you'll get lots of extra bonuses. Interestingly enough, we now know that in order for people to run an extra mile, to go the distance, rewards are actually really important. And so we've integrated that into our platform. And I love the fact that we're actually doing even more to incentivize everybody to do good, be good, and then enjoy the good, right?
I think that is absolutely a brilliant thing. And whatever you do, I tend to emulate. And so people in my world are starting to get this buzz that we are going to be doing the reward system within our own program. Because why not? Why not turn your brain onto positive? Why not use your brain? Why not motivate your neighbors, your friends, your family, your team, the way that the brain is actually designed to be motivated? I thought with all of the things I had learned about team dynamics, and it wasn't until I understood that all I have to do is get them in a good mood, tell them a good story to get the journey started, and all of a sudden we can build momentum in the direction of our dreams. And that's so simple compared to every other theory and every other practice I had been given. So, and this makes it super simple and super fast, which I absolutely love. Kim, I really appreciate all of your time, all of your expertise, everything that you bring to the party. And we will continue this conversation because as you unroll and unpack what impact this new reward system built within the positivity community, built within Positive Prime, what that starts to happen with people's brains, I'm going to want to have you back because we want to make sure that everyone listening who's interested in getting their brain on positive has access to the latest information on the topic. So promise you'll come back?
Absolutely. It would be great if you'll have me. I hope that it's been worthwhile. Let us know. Please do. I'm pretty approachable, so I'm happy to hear any feedback, any suggestions. I do know you will enjoy Positive Prime. There are tens of thousands of subscribers, and by extension, that means there's hundreds of thousands of people who've been exposed to Positive Prime sessions. That's people sharing their accounts. We also do lots of work in the corporate world, and we do lots of work in the business world as well, and with trainers and therapists and all sorts of other thought leaders outside of our platform. And so our technology is leveraged far and wide these days. It's critical. There is nothing else on the planet like it either, by the way.
Well, I will vouch that I never found anything like it. And I had been in the stress management soup for over 3 decades. And I'm grateful that I found it when I did and that it has become a part of my life. And now, thanks to you, I got introduced to the work of Shawn Achor. And it is Shawn Achor who actually influenced the entire building out of this podcast. So when you talk about the butterfly wing, we don't know who we're going to influence. So now I've got somebody looking into how do I get to Shawn Achor so I can interview him on this show. So we'll be having those conversations soon. In the meantime, the links for everything that you want to know are in the chat. This is a combination, great partnership with you, Kim. And I just can't thank you enough for your support of my mission in the world and your support of my brain. Because certainly in the last 1.5 years, my brain on positive, I have been way more productive. And that is what we wish for everyone.